The bases dropped on another edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Wednesday. It is a Wall Pass Wednesday. We'll take your questions throughout the show. Lots to talk about with the MLS SuperDraft yesterday. Some teams made some trades, some surprising ones, some players that we talked about yesterday that could be available at 19 for Atlanta United were not. One player we didn't really talk about yesterday that was available at 19 was a big surprise. Eric Centeno, Generation Adidas, goes to Atlanta United in the first round. We'll get into him. We'll get into the other picks, kind of what's up for those guys, what's next for them, what the plans are. Carlos Bocanegra spoke to the media last night as well. We'll talk a little bit about what he had to say. Moves around the league with both draft picks and maybe some surprising ones, but also some rumors of other moves coming or getting done here quickly, some homegrown sign. Busy time right now around MLS. Busy time around the world as silly season continues to get sillier. We'll try to break all of that down as best we can this morning. I got reinforcements in John Nelson and Jarrett Smith hanging out today. Jarrett, your Celtic squad are going to lose the prized possession of Charlotte FC, it appears, with Riley McGree going to Middlesbrough instead of Celtic. What's up?
Man, this is the same front. Yeah, you kind of trust in them because at this point, and that's going to change by the week, by the way, whether or not we trust in them. This is the same front office that messed up the managerial hiring last summer, if you remember correctly.
Yeah,
and ended up with like backed into Ange Postecoglou, which has worked out beautifully. So yeah, I'm wondering if there was an issue with money here that just didn't line up correctly. It sounds like the fee was agreed to and that the salary was the issue. He walks away, goes to Middlesbrough. Have fun in Middlesbrough, kid.
Yeah, I don't think it's officially done yet. Stephen McGowan with an update on the Middlesbrough side. They made kind of a last-ditch move. I think, honestly, this is more on Middlesbrough throwing more money at it than Celtic really, messing up in this case. They had a fee agreed to. Middlesbrough's offered $2 million more. That's not quite double the fee, but pretty close. McGree will be reportedly on £14,000 a week. I'm not sure what that would equate to in a yearly dollar fee in the U.S. Don't do the math, John. You're going to hurt yourself.
I would happily take 14,000 whatever a week.
Yeah,
pounds, euros, biscuits.
Of course. It sounds like Middlesbrough just kind of got a little desperate here, and Charlotte walks away with a pretty sweet deal, John, for a player that they're never going to see, who they signed and loaned out, and now you had a bidding war, and Charlotte's going to be the winners of the bidding war.
No question about it. And when was the last time that anybody got to have as good a piece of business as this for someone that's never crossed the ocean, never took a flight, never dressed up in your particular kit? And you just basically have an asset that is heading into a different direction entirely, and you're getting more than you could have imagined for it. That's found money for a team that needs to find resources. So good piece of business for Charlotte.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise. While we're on player potential movement, let's jump into this one from Perfect Tommy. Do you see Julian Alvarez moving this month or after the season in Argentina due to the World Cup? For those of you who don't listen to some of our degenerate action on soccer over there, when we talk about really deep diving into the other leagues around the world, Argentina is a very complicated one. They do a split season of sorts, but not like an Apertura Clausura. They do a Copa de la Liga, which is a league cup, but it's not like the Gummy Bear Cup. It's more like a miniature league competition. They split the league into two. They've got 28 teams in their league right now as well. So MLS and Argentina have some things in common in that regard. The formats are completely different. They split the league into two. You play everybody in your group once, and then they have a playoff in the Copa de la Liga. That's the first half of the calendar year. The second half of the calendar year is you play everybody in the league once, so that'll be 27 games, and the champion's the champion. The World Cup's at the end of that.
I love that you need a spreadsheet for Argentina and Brazil. Because Brazil's a whole nother animal.
Brazil's a whole different one. Colombia has like a funky group stage playoff, which is even more different. Ecuador has not really an Apertura and Clausura. They have a phase 1 and phase 2, and then a grand final between the two winners, unless the same team wins both. Some leagues
Such
have
a great name for it, by the way. It should
What's that?
always, everyone should have it. Everyone should call it their grand final. It's such a great term for it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of Australian style. They do that, I think, a lot with their championships and different competitions.
Yeah, it's just such a good term.
Mexico does an Apertura Clausura, and they have playoffs at the end. Other leagues do an Apertura Clausura without playoffs. Some have different playoff formats. It's all over the map. Sometimes I can remember all of it, and then sometimes it changes year to year, like Argentina. So we'll see. Does Alvarez leave now? I think so, because reportedly his release clause is $20 million to go now. It's outside of the range, and the performances he's had, like, it's not going to be an MLS kind of situation. He's past that. Manchester United was reportedly very interested, but it sounds like that cooled. Alvarez's people were in Italy, and Milan has been one that's been linked to him quite a bit. Inter has been linked to him as well. As Nick Alifi's told us, Inter's usually the one connected with the Argentines, so there's probably a lot of history there. There are reports that the release clause jumps up to $25 million in the last 10 days of the window, which is a kind of unique element here. Not sure if that's entirely accurate. He could stick around. I don't think he sticks around for the whole year. If he sticks around for this first half of the competition because the right club doesn't come up with the release clause or whatever, I think that's okay. I don't think he's there after the summer window. I think by that point he would go to Europe. He needs to go to the right situation in Europe. He's ready. He's one of the leading Argentine goal scorers in the world right now, and he was one of the leading scorers in his hemisphere last season. Kid's ready for the move, and we'll see if he gets it now and where he ends up, because he's one of these guys who should go and play. He's not somebody who should go over and have to get loaned to a second division Belgian club. Yeah. Looking at you, Graham Potter. He should be fine to jump straight in, and he needs to go to a place where he would. Argentina would not have been that, or Manchester United would not have been that club. That wouldn't have been the right fit for him. There are some clubs, big clubs, that he would be the right fit for. We'll see what happens. Kind of deal that if Barcelona had more money lying around in the couch cushions, would actually be a really good potential move for them. But I don't know if they can pay that release clause right now. They did, thanks to Samuel Umtiti taking a extended deal with less money. They, kind of finessed the financial fair play and Spanish cap rules to be able to register Ferran Torres. So they've been trying to get rid of Umtiti. They were even considering rescinding his contract. So the way they get Ferran Torres lined up to play and registered, they have to re-sign Umtiti for an even longer deal. Yeah. Good job, Barcelona. Alvarez would be the perfect fit for them, Barcelona. But they can't even afford the 20 or 25 million in terms of a release clause to get him. It's just
Barcelona can't afford mine or John's release clause right now.
No, they can't. They tried. The check didn't clear.
No.
It's not gonna work.
I appreciate that you took the check at least, and it just didn't clear. I imagine you ran straight to the bank with it.
I looked at it.
I imagine you went to the bank with it, and they said no.
And you you sat there, you got past the guard, you looked at it, you went like this and threw it on the floor, and then it came back to you, and you're like, nope.
No, none of that. I looked at it, and it was written in crayon, and I said, no, this probably isn't legit. All right. Let's get into this MLS SuperDraft yesterday a little bit. The most surprising move of the draft revolved around a player that we talked about a good bit yesterday, Matthew Nocita, 6'8" center back from the Naval Academy. So Nocita was not on some of the early mock drafts at all. He was not listed. I'll give you a little bit of background. As we were getting ready for the Super Draft, I and contributor Niall helped put this together as well. I started working on a document of the guys who were listed on mock drafts, who were listed on big boards, and who were All-Americans from one of the different organizations that does an All-American list that were going to be draft eligible. And it was a little tricky because you have some guys who opted, it looks like, to go back to school for one more year because they could elect to take another year of eligibility due to the COVID year. That's across all college sports. So it gets a little tricky at times. I had a 26-page document with bullet points on different guys. Some guys I didn't have much information on because they were further down the draft and I didn't get that far. But Nocita was one who wasn't on the initial top drawer soccer list. Top drawer soccer covers the youth game, covers the college game extensively. It is worth your subscription if you're looking for that information. I've subscribed to them for a number of years. Travis Clark and his crew do a really good job. He wasn't on their initial mock draft. He wasn't on the initial MLS mock draft that they did, which Travis Clark helped with. He showed up first for me on the Ivis Galarza mock draft, his version 1 of it, at 19 to Atlanta United. I think he moved up a couple of spots in one of the lists. He ended up at 19 on Ivis's last mock draft. So really unclear where to rate him, but nowhere near where he went. He went 7 to the New York Red Bulls, who traded twice to move up, which is, again, one of the more bizarre things, Jared. I can't remember a draft in sports history that I've followed where a team had to make 2 deals to move up spots to get a guy that they wanted.
I'm sure it's happening. I just can't think of one off the top of my head. I imagine it's happened.
It happened in the NFL.
It's happened in the NFL. I'd be almost, where we have to move. We have to do one move to get, we have to do one move to get a draft pick, and then we're going to package that draft pick after the fact into another move for somebody else. I'm sure it's happened, but
something like
to your
that,
point,
sure.
It's weird as hell, but especially not for somebody who, and I get it, MLS draft is weird.
It is
because it's not readily available for consumption for most people, so you don't know a lot of these names. It's not like you're thinking about NBA prospects or NFL prospects. It's guys you're like, never heard that name before. That might be a creative player. Oh wow, they're doing that for him. Okay, wow.
Yeah, so they traded the 15 and the 11 in this series of moves. They gave up $200,000 in general allocation money to get Matthew Nocita. Again, 6'8", 3-time Patriot League Defensive Player of the Year. He does not move like a typical 6'8" guy. He's got good speed. He's very athletic. How quick is he side to side is probably the biggest question. And he hasn't played in one of the major conferences. So, how does he jump up level wise? Obviously, I would hope that he'd be very good in the air at 6'8". So that will help him a little bit. Fascinating player. And we talked about it yesterday. He's a fascinating player. You just don't see these kinds of players very often. And Red Bulls obviously wanted him and gave up a lot to get him. That was one of the big surprises of the draft. We're going to get into other silly season stuff. I already see some questions that are taking us in different directions. We will get to all the different silly season questions. I don't think anybody's hitting panic buttons about anything before camp even opens. So let's slow down on panic buttons, but let's get into a little bit more from the draft. I think some of the players and some of the situations to watch for, because there were surprises. There were things that happened that, of course, in every draft, you get that. Some players slide. Some players are a little bit of a surprise. Nobody's a bigger surprise than 6 and 7, Lucas Bartlett, who was rated generally around 25 to 40 by most people. And he's 25 years old, one of the older players available in the draft. He went number 6 to Dallas. I didn't see anybody having him below 20 in any of the mock drafts. Nocita at 7. Those 2 picks really allowed one of the players that a lot of people were high on to fall to Jarrett Smith's San Jose Earthquakes in Oseni Buda. Oseni Buda from Burkina Faso originally, really talented winger who's great in the 1v1s, is a Generation Adidas player, came out of Stanford. San Jose, with that pick and with the Swedish defender that they got from Clemson, Oscar Agren, San Jose might have had one of the best drafts, Jarrett.
We'll see how it translates. It looked good on paper, but we talked about before, MLS isn't the same animal in the draft as other sports, like the NBA or the NFL. You don't really know what you're going to get. But as far as if you want to look at it in that vacuum of, did they have a good draft? Yeah, by all accounts, they did. They popped some peyote and they just went for it. Took some timeouts, made some trades. The draft got really weird yesterday, especially back into the first round, into the second round. That thing got we went through a wormhole at some point, but
yeah, New
San
England picked a
Jose is
player.
just gonna
New
San
England
Jose.
picked a player on my list, or that was
But
not on my list.
didn't even have.
They picked a
Keeper out of
goalkeeper out of Loyola Marymount who nobody could say anything about him because he wasn't on anybody's prepared lists. Jacob Jackson. He's a domestic goalkeeper. There were others who were rated more highly, according to most of the experts. So that one was the biggest shock. I mean, you could just tell when you see these kind of drafts, and we've seen them again in all sports, where there's a surprise pick, and the analysts, kind of have an idea of like 3-4 different guys who could go with this next pick, depending on what the team needs, who's available, where the board is, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's one that surprises you, and it's like, yeah, I don't really have anything to say. I didn't have anything prepared. I got nothing. That was Jacob Jackson. Let's get into the Atlanta pick because it's part of the surprise list as well, I think. The last generation Adidas player on the board fell to Atlanta at 19, Eric Centeno. Centeno played 1 year in college. He's very young, which I think is a great situation here for a generation Adidas player who, if you don't know that program, it's guys who come out of school early. The league entices them to come out of school early with a little bit of bonus money. There's also an educational stipend in that package, which is great. But they don't count on your cap at all while they're in the program. Miles Robinson was a generation Adidas player. That's helpful. Now, they do graduate the program once they become a regular. I don't think Centeno would be expected to become a regular for probably a couple of years. That's a great fit for Atlanta United. He will probably play a lot for Atlanta United too this season. The interesting element about Centeno when the experts were talking about him is that nobody really knew what his position would end up being at the next level. Just for a very broad-based synopsis of where college soccer is versus coming into MLS. You're not going to take a playmaker out of college and play them as a 10 in MLS because that's where you're probably going to go spend on a big-time player internationally or a big-time domestic player. Okay, so guys who played as a 10, like Ben Bender, for example, who went number 1 to Charlotte, probably going to have to be more of an attacking 8. So they're going to have to do some defensive work in the pro game. Can they make that transition? A lot of wingers who were very good in college, playing lesser competition, obviously, than the pros, are probably going to have to convert to outside backs. So that means a lot of the outside backs in college really don't get the opportunity to make the move a lot of times up. They've got to be able to attack well. It's also just part of the modern game. You have to have those outside backs that attack. Centeno was a guy that some people said would have to transition from being an impactful winger to an outside back or a wing back. Well, that would fit what Atlanta does and the way they play. Matt Doyle, for example, had him as the number 1 fullback on his kind of depth chart of guys who were available. SBI, Soccer by Ivis, had him going number 11 in the mock draft ahead of time. His last mock draft, MLS had him rated number 14. He ends up going number 19. Freshman who started 16 games. He participated in the Sacramento Republic Academy. Some of the quotes on him, Galarcep said that Centeno is arguably the most technically gifted player in the draft. Think to how we've had some of these conversations about Atlanta United's profile and players they look for. Technical excellence, skill on the ball is always top of the list. So that perfectly fits. Travis Clark thought he projected more as a right back at the next level. Top Drawer Soccer, a little bit more on him. He featured as an attacking winger in a 4-2-3-1 at the University of Pacific. Showed a solid ability to beat players off the dribble, to score goals or create goals for others. Again, this is where Travis Clark thought that he would, best be served to move to right back to see if he can defend at a high enough level that his attacking contributions can thrive. Could start the season as an attacking player coming off the bench, more likely to get reps as an MLS reserve squad. Carlos Bocanegra spoke afterwards and said that they saw him as a winger. They don't see him as an outside back project. They don't see that right now. Now, of course, that can change. And if he plays right back for the twos, don't start freaking out and saying that people lied to you. That stuff changes once you get into camp. But Centeno, ability-wise, is a player that the club really liked. Carlos talked about how he's crafty, he gets out of tight space as well. Again, you think of Atlanta United profiles of players, that's generally the kind of guys they're looking for. So Centeno fits it. He's very cap-friendly. He's very roster-friendly. He gives you some depth on the wing right now. Maybe he does get some looks as a wing back. We'll see. But he'll probably be a player, John, that we'll see a lot for Atlanta United too early on in the season. But he will be in camp with the first team.
Yeah, and this is what I'm looking forward to seeing with Centeno. And you mentioned the technical skill and being crafty and going up against players that are 5 or 10 years older than you are in USL Championship next season. You're going to have to show that kind of ability, because those older players, they're going to want to push you around, to bully you a little bit and try to force you into doing what they want to do. So for me, seeing someone like Centeno, who is as gifted as he is, being able to work around the veterans that are going to be chasing after him, I'm looking forward to this. But yeah, the two biggest things when Centeno came across the board for me were the Generation Adidas part, being cap friendly and roster friendly, in addition to everything that we've seen and heard about him. But yeah, looking forward to this one with the twos, definitely.
Jarrett, one of the other things from Carlos's comments after the draft, I asked him about the move that we're seeing with the academy right now, where more academy players are signing pro deals than ever before with the twos, not homegrown deals, although we're seeing that too, but with the twos. And Carlos talked about, just the situation where the academy, has a number of years on it now. You've got some of these kids who are being signed now, and you're seeing almost the baby pictures when they join the academy, with Vial, with Reyes, who were there in the very beginning, is I think 11-year-olds, maybe 12-year-olds. 4 guys have signed in that situation over the past few months, with a Johnny Fortune, with David Mejia, with Jonathan Vial, and Vicente Reyes. But what Carlos said, and it kind of applies to Centeno coming in from the outside as well, the other draft picks, and we'll get into them here in just a second. The preseason camp is going to be an opportunity for these guys to come in early, work with the first team, train with the first team, play with the first team, and impress. And Gonzalo Pineda has been a manager who's talked about it consistently since he's been here. He doesn't really seem to care about youth or any of that. He wants the best players he can get on the field, the guys who are in the best form, and he's going to give these young kids opportunities to show what they can do.
Yeah, this is something that featured as well. I know it's still a boogeyman for some people, the Gabriel Heinze area there, but the thing with Gabriel Heinze as well, and going back to Frank de Boer, getting these kids out there. They don't, it's a feature, not a bug, of the coaches you've seen and of the system, where you have guys out there putting players out there. They don't care if they're 16 or 26 or 36. If you're good enough and they think you're good enough to contribute and make yourself and others better, then you're going to get that opportunity. And hopefully we see more of it with these kids. And don't be surprised if you do see more of it. And you don't have to read too much into it. You can be excited about it, but don't. If a Johnny Fortune shows up in a training session with the first team, doesn't mean a Johnny Fortune's going to be in the starting 11 day one. Doesn't even mean he's going to be in the 18. Means they might like him and they want to see what he can do and see where he can improve and if he can make others around him better with a challenge.
Yeah, and you're seeing some of these players too who don't have the interest in going to play in the college game, and they'd rather be pro and get more reps, more opportunities again to train with the first team, more time on the pitch. I mean, the NCAA has rules that are archaic in terms of games that you can play, and spring season is very small and limited, and it's not competitive right now. You had the one weird year with COVID. That's not going to happen again. There has been talk about extending the season to run fall through the spring, to play a game a week and play a few more games, but over a longer period of time. It makes a lot of logical sense. I think it'd be better for player development, but colleges aren't really there for player development at the soccer level. You do get guys, and you're going to get guys in this draft who are going to play games this season, who are going to play some significant minutes this season, for example. I think I think this draft doesn't have the headliners that maybe some previous drafts did, like 2020 with a Daryl Dike and a Henry Kessler. I don't think they have that, but I think this draft had a good bit of depth. And I think you're going to get some guys further down the list that could contribute at the MLS level. Now, I want to get into this because I've touched on it a couple of times talking about some of these players. Kefsey said, what's the rationale for drafting wingers instead of fullbacks to play fullback? Is it a product of the overall talent of the winger group? I think it's just a product of the overall talent of wingers in college, because this is a very consistent thing. And honestly, it goes into the academy game and the youth game and all of that. Typically, kids who play on the wing while they're kids and they're on the way up are some of your more talented players. They're typically taught to play in your 1v1 situations. They're good in those moments. Your kids who play fullback at the youth level too often, and this isn't everywhere and this isn't every coach, but too often are not taught that attacking side of the game as much. It's easier to convert typically, as they've been identified on the way up, the more talented player to learn how to defend than to try to bring talent out of a player who has been a defender before. It's easier to teach defense. You can't teach technical ability as easily as you can teach defense. So that's kind of what it comes down to. And that's generally just how it is from your probably 14-year-olds and up, where positions start to become a little more rigid. Guys who are more talented are going to get the looks in the pro level. And you're going to see some of those players convert positions to be able to get on the field at the pro level. Not everybody, but some. New England and Bruce Arena has been one of the leaders in this. They've just done such a great job in converting Brandon Bide, DeJuan Jones, Tajon Buchanan into more well-rounded players with defensive abilities than purely college attackers. So it can be very useful if it's done correctly. All right, we'll get into some other stuff around the draft just a second. The other Atlanta United players drafted: Tristan Trager in the second round out of Air Force, number 47 pick overall. Daniel Bloyu from Penn State, from Ghana originally. Mike Conti's very excited. 5'8" attacker. He spent some time in the Philadelphia Union Academy as well. And the last pick was Tola Shiwunmi, who is from England, played at the University of New Hampshire. He was one of the compensatory picks, number 88 overall, although his name was on the board before some of the other picks were done, which the MLS Draft Tracker was an absolute experience. Tola is 6'3". Yeah, it's an experience. Tola is 6'3" as a forward. So your last two picks are two very different kinds of forwards: a 5'8" forward who maybe plays on the wing at the next level, and a 6'3" forward. I think both will get invites. Both will get opportunities to work. That's why you pick them up. That's why you bring them in. And we'll see what they can do. I think it's probably far more likely that those are two players who sign Atlanta United 2 deals for the season, kind of like what Josh Bauer signed as a second-round pick last year. 2's deals, maybe. Bauer signed a first-team deal with an option. I don't think, just because Atlanta United is looking at a very full roster right now, you're going to see any of these guys do that. Now, again, Centeno's on a Generation Adidas deal. He's different. Trager was the second-round pick. There has been some talk, and I don't know the details as of yet, but coming into the draft, there was some talk that Trager would not be available for preseason. I don't know if it's finishing up commitments or school or what that looks like. There's been a lot of questions about service commitments for athletes now, and I know it's differed generally from academy to academy. I think the Navy has generally been the one that has the longer service commitment, at least thinking back historically. Yep. I didn't see anything about that with Trager or with Nocita, the Naval Academy center back who went to Red Bulls. But Trager, it was always said in all of the pre-draft talk that he wouldn't be available for preseason. So he might come into the 2s a little bit later. He's another attacking player who I think might project out to the wing, but he scored a boatload of goals for Air Force. Again, a little bit lower level in terms of the overall powers in college soccer, but he was very productive. Traeger's 22, Bloyu's 21, Tola is 21. Both Bloyu and Shiwunmi will turn 22 in the first half of the season. Trager will turn 23 in August. Centeno will turn 20 at the end of June. just to get a sense of ages and what you can expect. Other questions, because other stuff came out of the post-draft conversation. Carlos Bocanegra spoke about Ronald Hernandez coming back to the team. It's going to be a permanent deal. He'll be a member of Atlanta United's roster. He won't be on loan from Aberdeen. I think there were still some T's to be crossed and I's to be dotted on the paperwork, but he told the media that after the draft yesterday. So that's more depth at right back. That gives you Hernandez back with Lennon as your starter, I think, walking into camp with Hernandez as the number 2. They're going to be very competitive. We've talked about this, I think, a lot in the preseason or coming into the preseason. Lennon plays one way. Hernandez plays it a little differently. I think that's a good thing. I think they're going to push each other. And Lennon's had a good offseason. I think his work with the U.S. men's national teams really helped him. He was one of the standouts in the December camp, according to Greg Berhalter. He's going to come in with a lot of confidence. Ronald Hernandez is going to come in to want to win the spot. That's a good thing. That's a good position to be in. Couple other things that came out of yesterday with Carlos. He was asked about potential moves or other moves. He did say that there would be another goalkeeper signed. That should happen before the end of the week. Some of the stuff, like signings have to be approved by the league office because of the kind of unique setup with MLS. So sometimes things get kind of bogged down in the paperwork. And if you were paying attention to the draft tracker yesterday, you could see how things get bogged down at times on the MLS side. They didn't update it for like 20 plus minutes in the middle of the second round. But anyway, I digress. Goalkeeper coming. Don't know what the profile of that goalkeeper is. Does it push Castanera to 3? Does Castanera stay the 2? Is this a 3? What does that mean for the long-term depth chart? I think more than anything, it means Justin Garces will probably be loaned to Atlanta United 2 to play the majority of the games there, because that would be 4 goalkeepers on the first team roster. You're not going to do that. 2 to 3 other additions is what Carlos said. And when you start to do the math and you start to look at it, that probably means there's got to be at least 1 or 2 subtractions, because you're getting pretty full. Out of players who will be loaned to the 2s, I think, on a permanent to take them off of your roster, because, again, that's a very common move we see. Garces would be 1. You'll have 3 goalkeepers on the senior roster. Efrain Morales, who, Jared, we had a chance to see a little bit with the 2s this year. He's still very young. Had injuries. He's a very unique body type, and I think that's made it a little bit difficult for him to deal with some of just the literal growing pains that he's had. Efrain Morales will be loaned to the 2s for the entire season, I would assume, and hopefully get to play a good bit, because he's another player. When we talk about positions at the next level, I'm not entirely sure where he projects yet.
Yeah, I don't know either. We've talked about just the sheer size he has.
Mm-hmm.
And, we talk about guys growing into their bodies. I don't know how much growing he's going to do in terms of growing into that body anymore. But it's going to be interesting to see like how he develops, and if he gets these moments with the second team this year. You don't have that depth if you want to go the defensive midfield route that you had with guys who were coming out of college like you did last year. The opportunity is going to be there for the second team to put him in that position to see what he can do. It doesn't just apply to him; it apply to other positions on the field. You talk about with this draft about potentially having a right back. Well, you got a guy you took in the draft last year who pushed to an attacking right back who had a damn good year in Aiden McFadden. And there's going to be depth and there's going to be competition. And I want to see, how that continues to grow for everybody, but Morales especially, just because his size and his skill set, it is very unique.
1 point of clarification: McFadden is on an Atlanta United 2 deal. He's not on a first team deal. He would have to earn an MLS contract. And I think McFadden and I think Robbie Mertz are right there. They are right on that line. And again, this roster is pretty full. I don't think you're going to make a move to open up a spot for them right now, but to have them with your 2s to where if something happens, if there's an injury, if there's a transfer, whatever could happen to open up a spot, you'll have 2 guys who will probably train a good bit with the first team group who I think are ready and I think can provide that depth. Where do they project further than that in MLS? I don't know. It's always hard to say because you have a ton of talented players coming in every year. And Mertz and McFadden are very good. Are they MLS starters anywhere right now? I don't think so. I don't think they're at that level. I don't think they're quite at that level. Can they be? Yes. I really do think they can. I think Mertz is a very good student of the game. His soccer IQ is off the charts. And I think when he gets consistent time, and it took him a minute because he had some injuries early on, he can be a playmaking 8, I think is maybe a fair way to put it. I don't think he's a true 10. He can drop back and help you. He's good in the build-up play, but he's creative when you get to the final third and opening things up. McFadden is one of those attackers at the college level who's turned into a right-sided player who can play right back, can easily play wing back, and can play as a right winger. And I think we're seeing more of that, John. I mean, across all levels of the game where you're getting wide players who are not as often as they used to be, purely fullback and winger, and they never cross. I think you're starting to see a lot of guys, and we see it with Brooks Lennon with the first team, where he's played on the right wing at times, where Hernandez has played at right back. You've got guys who can play anywhere on that side that is needed. McFadden fits that. I think he's got to get a little bit better defensively and maybe a little more consistent at this level, but he's really close. He was incredibly impressive last year.
He was, and you got to see those streaks with Aiden McFadden, where he would have those weeks where he was USL Championship Player of the Week and he could not miss. But then there were those times where we're discussing consistency, where you were looking for those same kinds of moments in key moments for Atlanta United 2 last year, and they weren't there. So I think that consistency is key when it comes to Aiden McFadden. But to your point about being able to play in multiple ideas, I'm not going to say positions because, we talk about formations as kind of over off to the side now, but just if you have an idea as to where you can have a player and have him do different things on different games, I think that that's big as well, to have players that can be multifaceted and can give you more than one idea. But yeah, back to McFadden, it is the consistency for me that I think a lot of folks are looking for, but he's right there, and it's been fun to see him develop. It's been great to see Robbie Mertz also be a part of the development and flourish as a veteran presence for Atlanta United too, but I think he's right there as well, that if given that right situation, he could be a part of an MLS roster.
Yeah, veteran presence at about 24, I think. That's a good kind of veteran that you like to have. GH brings up, really like to see Mertz and McFadden play with the first team on the short-term loan in U.S. Open Cup games. I got the sense, and maybe I'm reading between the lines, when I was asking about the Mejias and Fortunes and Reyeses, and Vials into what things look like for them coming up and what the progression is. Carlos kind of mentioned that, one, they'll play in preseason, and we'll see them in the preseason games, but they could play more later on with the first team. The Open Cup would be the route to do that because they're on twos deals. They could sign a short-term deal to play in an Open Cup match. That's exciting. I'd love to see that early on because remember, Atlanta United comes into the Open Cup earlier than ever before. So you're going to play a potentially third division pro team or maybe even an amateur team, depending on if they can get through to that level. That's an opportunity to maybe mix and match a little bit. Give some of your first team guys that haven't had much playing time up to that point a start, but also throw a test to some of these guys. And I think Mertz and McFadden fit into that as well. I think giving them an opportunity is going to be big in those moments. So I love that idea, and I do think we'll see that. Okay, let's get into the other rumor from yesterday, and it's popped up late yesterday. Cesar Luis Merlo reports that Internacional in Brazil has offered to sign Ezequiel Barco on loan with an option to buy. Again, to be very specific in what is being reported, and Cesar Luis Merlo is one of the top. He is somebody that when he says something, you pay attention to what he has to say. He is generally getting very good information from somewhere on it. He says that Internacional in Brazil, a club who's one of the bigger teams in Brazil, has offered to sign Ezequiel Barco on loan with an option to buy. No other real details than that. Okay. I don't know if that's what Barco and his representation would want. Inter, from my research, has paid over $10 million for a player once in their history. Generally, they've done a really good job developing talent and then moving it on. This is the club that Miguel Angel Ramirez was at for a short period of time after winning Copa Sudamericana with Independiente del Valle. He went to Inter, didn't stay very long. We know all the drama that you have with coaches in Brazil. And Ramirez came to Charlotte after his time at Inter. Inter, I think at times is maybe left out of the conversation of the giants of Brazilian football. But when you look just to get a sense of how big of a club they are, you know, their roster valuation right now is in the 80s in terms of 80 millions. They have some very talented players. They've brought some guys in recently in the 8 million kind of purchase fee. They've sold guys for large amounts as well. I don't know financially right this minute what they're sitting on. I don't know what the terms of this would be if this kind of deal would have a loan fee, which if you're trying to clear a designated player spot, which we'll get into again, and we'll rehash all of that here in a second, there has to be a loan fee. At least that's what most people think on the outside. And the stuff is very hard to follow because all of the rules are not there. And we've had this conversation about designated player spots with what Miami's doing and this or that and all the above. I don't think it would make sense for Atlanta to do it if they're not clearing a designated player spot. So from my understanding, there would have to be some kind of a fee up front. And if that's a loan fee, that's fine. The option is the loan fee, essentially like putting it on layaway. Is it an obligation? Is there a trigger for the option that is when player does X, the option gets triggered? Is it a true option? They can just make a decision on a set number at the end of the deal. No idea. No idea. The reason why I always say this is because we don't have all the information about all of this. I know everybody thinks, and they could absolutely be correct. I want that to be clear here, but I try, and I hope you guys know by now, to be absolutely thorough with all of this stuff with you guys. The conversation about Barco and Thiago Almada, it really comes down to Almada's salary. If his salary is under the U22 threshold, he can fit as a U22 player. You can move probably Ibarra to the senior roster. If you have to buy anything down on him because of fitting it under the cap, that's a different conversation. Or you buy somebody else down, whatever, with allocation money, that part doesn't really matter. You'd have to move somebody out of your U22 group. Ibarra would probably be the easiest to move out, put him on the cap. Okay. That's if Almada's salary is under the threshold, which is around $612,000 per year. If it's over that, then he has to be a designated player, and you have to clear a designated player spot. You're not going to be able to buy anybody down. That's what it comes down to. It's really that. That's it. That's it. That's all that matters. So is his salary going to be under that? He could be U22. Is his salary over that number? Then he's got to be a designated player, which you got to clear a spot, which you're not going to clear Joseph Martinez. You're not going to clear Luis Araujo. Barco is the guy that we're going to talk about. That's what you're going to have to figure out. It's really that simple. And there is an if and a maybe and a what, and we don't know. Just to be clear. Again, that is where this sits. Do they have to move Barco? Because Uncle No Pockets asked, are they pushing a panic button? I don't think so, because nothing's been said. I don't know where the Almada situation sits either. There is an exclusive option to purchase, according to the club. Nobody else can come in and buy him, basically, is the important thing. I don't know how long that option runs. I would probably not assume that it runs past this window for MLS. I wouldn't make much sense for it to run further than that unless paying a good amount to keep an option. So decisions are going to have to get made, but it does come down to Almada's salary. Or let me start with you, John. You know, we've wondered where Barco could go next, and I don't think anybody realistically coming into this thought that Brazil would be it.
Yeah.
We are seeing a lot of movement back and forth with MLS and Brazil. Inter is one of the clubs in Brazil that could afford to make this kind of a move happen. The market, and please don't play the game of comparisons between, well, Atlanta paid this, so they're going to want this. Well, they paid 15 million or so, depending on who you talk to, in 2018. there's been some things that have changed the transfer market since 2018. So it's a different world. But none of us really had Brazil on that list as a possibility. I don't know how much stock you put into it. It's Merlo, so I'm sure there's probably an offer here of some sort. But do you think that Barco would end up in the Brazilian Serie A?
I've been trying to go back and forth on it. And for me, it comes down to right now, the history of the fees that have been put out by Independiente. And if they're in that 8 to 10, I'm kind of sitting here.
But hold on. And this is why I push back on that, because I think it's close enough. What did Augsburg just do?
Yeah.
They broke their record by a lot.
Right.
Like I'm more skeptical when it's a link to, somebody whose all-time expenditure is like 2 or 3 million.
Yeah.
If we're talking somebody who has spent 10, I think in the last couple of years.
It's the neighborhood, yes.
And for the right player, could they go up to 15 if they've sold guys and they bring that money in? Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think it's possible.
And that for me is the key in this, is possibly making other moves and selling other players to get to that number. And that for me, as I'm saying, as things stand right now, I'm kind of like, I'm not so sure. But if there are other maneuverings that can be made so they can get to that number, or is it, something where it's a little less and you get a higher percentage of the pass a little further down. If Independiente makes another transaction with it, then that's where the numbers for me can add up. So right now, as the number sits, I'm like, if you make more transactions, I get a little warmer to it. But if it's a little less and there's a deeper percentage, then I can be convinced that this is something that could go down if the numbers are closer. Let's put it that way.
I guess, Jarrett, where I'm at before we lose you at the top of the hour, I just don't even really worry about what they paid for him. I mean, you don't want to lose money, but you also have come out of and you're still dealing with a pandemic that has affected everything. That just, it's. I don't think you can truly make that comparison. So I don't think they're trying to hit a certain metric here. I think a lot of it comes down to, a club that can pay and can make the deal happen and can give Atlanta what they need in the deal, which is money, and also is whatever they got to do if they're trying to clear a designated player spot to clear it. But also you got to think about what the player wants too, because the player does come into this. And generally, Jarrett, I mean, Atlanta United's done a good job of, I think, giving the player the move that they want when opportunities come up.
Yeah, it feels like we've had that history now for a bit. That you're going to get that guys have, when they've wanted something, the team has tried to accommodate them. We go back to the Carlos Carmona thing. We go back to the Franco Escobar thing from even a couple of weeks ago. That was last year, that if he wasn't going to be here, he wanted to go back. They arranged for him to go where he wanted to go. Yeah. With this one. Yeah, it's weird because you're in a post-COVID world. You don't know what teams are going to spend. Values change, and if it comes down to it, I feel like I've made this clear, but personally, it's my opinion that if Barco's here next year, great, because if he plays like he did at the end of 2021, the potential to burn things up is quite lovely, because he's very, very good when he's able to not be on the bench with injuries from getting kicked over and over and over. If you do move him, and if you don't necessarily move him if you have a magic number in your head, it doesn't get hit, that sucks. I mean, it's disappointing on like a personal level, and I get that. I can live with it, especially considering Barco is 22. I would like to imagine that they would structure any deal with him, especially if it's to a Brazil, with the eye on, okay, we'll take less money, but we want a bigger chunk of your sell-on down the road, because he's 22 years old. If he goes down to Brazil and plays like he's capable of, then he's going to get his wish and going to Europe at some point, and you would love to get that sell-on fee down the road. So
100%.
It might be, you take less money now and you get money down the road, which it's disappointing because we love gratification. but that's just kind of how it works in this instance sometimes, where it's, you're not always going to get everything up front, and yeah, you can be disappointed by it, absolutely. But I think if you don't get it up front, I think you are going to them and saying, if you want to give us less up front, that's fine, but we're going to take a bigger piece of your pie when you sell him overseas.
Yeah, and that's pretty consistent worldwide with how these things go. I'm with you on that. I think another important element is if this is the last year of Barco's contract and there's not an option past this, which is a safe assumption, if a deal doesn't come up or you're able to make Almada U22 or whatever, and Barco is here to start the season, I think then you're probably talking about extending him for a year. And you need to figure that out, because you're not going to let him get into the summer window where he can sign a pre-contract and go wherever he wants on a free at the end of the season. I wouldn't think, because, maybe you don't hit what you expected to hit when you bought him in 2018, but you're going to hit something. You're going to hit something worthwhile. You're going to get a transfer fee in 8 figures, and you're not going to let that disappear because of timing issues. I would absolutely think that if he does not move in this window, that if there is not an option or another year on his contract, and again, this is stuff we don't always know, and it hasn't really been reported in this case, if you're worried about him being able to leave on a free at the end of the season, I think he gets extended if he's still here to start the season. I do. But we will see with that. Jarrett, I think you have to leave us, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
I'm still mad at Red Bulls for taking our giant center back. I'm still disappointed by that. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell Red Bulls was doing. Like
200,000 for a player that felt like a reach at 7 and is just a very strange project anyway.
Mm-hmm. And it could totally pay off, and we could look really dumb. I'm just confused in the moment, and we'll see. Like I said, I mean, it could come back and be like, "Hey, remember that time we said Red Bulls were crazy, and then they weren't? That was fun, right?" I'm just confused because I've never seen someone in this sport like climb the ladder on 2 trades with a lot of money to take a 6'8" center back.
Yeah. I've never seen a 6'8"
Nick
center
Levy is in shambles, by the way, right now, because the guy from Navy is not here, and Atlanta went and got someone from Air Force instead.
You got the guy from Trager instead.
Yeah, so Marine Nick Levy is, man, gonna need to do a checkup on him.
He stays in shambles at times, though. We always have to check in on him because things get out of hand occasionally.
Well, I mean, if you had picks like he had during Picks of the Week, you would too.
That's very true. Very true. Thank you, Jarrett. We'll see you tomorrow.
Probably.
Or at least we'll hear from you. We won't see you because you're shy.
Hell, you might see me today. There's no telling.
Craziness. We'll see if we add you back to the show.
Okay.
Bye. All right, John, it's time for you to tell us about Toca football and Eliminize right about now.
Question for you. Do you have a young soccer player in your family? If you do, have you ever considered private instruction with a professional instructor to take said player's game to the next level? Well, Toca football has 4 indoor soccer training centers in the Atlanta area. Their trainers utilize innovative technology in a fun environment to help that favorite player's skill and decision-making improve. So give Toca football a try, why don't you? SDH is partnering with Toca to offer our listeners an opportunity to check out their revolutionary and fun Toca soccer training method for no cost whatsoever. That means it's free. So you can book your free session right now with the promo code DH. DH is your promo code. Go to tocafootball.com/program/Toca-training. tocafootball.com/program/TOCA-training and get your favorite player's game headed to the next level right then and there. SDH is also brought to you by Eliminize Service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, or food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize Service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. It's a green way to go about things, kind of the environment that gets rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue, different than those masking agents that we use from time to time that are housed under our sink in the kitchen. It's a proven scientific formula to destroy odor down to the molecule. Elemanize lets pricing be easy for you by using either cubic feet or parts per million to figure out an equation and a cost that's right for you. Results in 24 hours or less. And if you have any other questions, frequently asked or otherwise, you can go to their website, elemanize.com/Atlanta. The /Atlanta is key so they know what part of the world that you are talking to them from. ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta. Elemanize.com/Atlanta. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, Elemanize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
Nicely done, John.
2.5 minutes, I'm sure.
No, not 2.5. You would have been completely out of the music. About 2:15.
Okay.
Which isn't horrible. All right, we've got Mike Conti joining us right about now. Let's add Mike to the show. What's going on, Mike?
Good morning, guys. Is my microphone okay? I'm at home today, and I had to change the settings for this fancy new system we're using.
Your fancy new system sounds spectacular, sir.
Okay, good. John, where are you? Are you in some kind of dollhouse or?
Yes. Actually, I'm in a Miami Vice episode from season 2. It is anniversary week, so I am coming to you live from St. George Island, Florida, where the Gulf of Mexico is literally about 70 yards that way.
Very, very cool. Have fun. The paint scheme reminds me a little bit of when I was covering Big Ten football. The Iowa visitors dressing room and media room was painted in that very shade of pink because Hayden Fry, I guess, thought that would soften the visiting team up a little bit. But the media room was painted the same way. It was
soften up the media, so he's not asking
I felt very relaxed and docile as I was asking Joe Paterno why he wasn't blitzing LeVar Arrington enough.
Yeah, I do find this
anniversary week, so this is why we're here.
Gotcha. I do find this really funny that John says he's in a Miami Vice episode. Mike thinks he's in a dollhouse. Mazzano thinks he's in his daughter's bedroom.
Well, I would have to have children for that to be the case.
You could have stolen somebody else's daughter's bedroom.
So great. We're turning this into a Law and Order SVU episode, all of it.
Well, now, honestly, when John popped up on my screen doing the Elemanize spot, he did a remarkable job, I want to say. 10 out of 10. I thought, that's actually that's very charming and Victorian. I wonder if John's like at some kind of bed and breakfast. So maybe I was a little more accurate than I thought I was.
Well, yeah, there are, full disclosure, there are, when you come off of the 3.5-mile bridge to come on to St. George Island, there are row homes that basically stare at the Gulf of Mexico. And the boss and I come through this time every year to celebrate our anniversary and to be far enough away to be far enough away, but still reachable if we need to be.
One more question in this interrogation of John before we get on the SuperDraft.
Yes, sir.
Is St. George Island Panhandle or Peninsula?
It is Apalachicola, so I guess Panhandle.
Big Bend, technically.
Big Bend. We're about 45 minutes to an hour southwest of Tallahassee.
Gotcha. All right. I'm going to have to do some Googling about St. George.
So that's where we are. We are Tallahassee and in through the Apalachicola Forest, doing this Apalachicola and St. George Island. So that's where we are.
Awesome. All right. Abby says Big Bend on the Twitch pitch. Okay. I'm going to do some Googling when we're done with the show because I'm very intrigued by this.
I know you've also done some Googling on Atlanta United's Penn State draft selection.
Yes. I can't pronounce his name, but I can tell you that he led Penn State in goal scoring, and it's like I tweeted yesterday, if you want to build a winner, you got to build with Penn Staters. I'm excited for him. I mean, I don't know what his future necessarily is going to be with the club, but it's like Carlos Bocanegra said yesterday. Everyone drafted is going to have a chance to come in and compete. I think that's going to create a really good competitive environment in training camp for everyone, obviously. And his pedigree is pretty good. He played in USL 2 for Reading. That's not Reading in England. That's Reading in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania.
But Reading, one of the top teams in USL League 2. They've been in the Open Cup a number of years. A really strong club. That's not just like, he went to play somewhere in the summer just to stay fit. Like you get recruited to go play there and you're expected to win.
No, it's a good club, and he was with the Philadelphia Union Academy, and you know how I feel about the Union Academy, and I think if you look at Brendan Aronson and some of the players who have come out of the Union Academy, that's a very, very solid program. And again, like, he started at Old Dominion, he transferred to Penn State, and he went to Penn State and he dominated. And that's what I want to see. He led Penn State in scoring. I think the goals, assists total, he co-led the team if you add the goals and the assists together. Mm-hmm. Penn State calls it points. I think that's kind of a hockey scoring system, but I'll go with it.
College thing. They do that where they do the 2 points for a goal, 1 for an assist.
That I'm good with it. He co-led the team in that. He was first team All Big Ten. Scored a goal in a tournament game. I believe actually oddly against Penn State when he was with Old Dominion. So I like his pedigree a lot. I really do. That's the kind of player I want to see brought in here with the chance to compete. And boy, I mean, if he can seize that opportunity and maybe help the twos out a little bit, that would be awesome. I would be really, really excited to see. I mean, I dropped my phone when I saw that pick. I was so excited because I'm serious. Like, it's tough. I mean, Penn State's it's a good program, but we don't have a ton of guys in Major League Soccer. And every time Connor Maloney came to town, I'd always kind of hope in the back of my head that maybe with Atlanta United comfortably ahead, Connor Maloney could do something and we could have a little fun with that. But now the fact that Atlanta United has a Penn Stater, I like it. I obviously like it. I like their draft a lot. I mean, I think what they did yesterday, and I wanted to ask Carlos about this, and then it seemed like we had more of an opportunity to talk about big picture things with him. So I left it off to the side, but I'd love to talk to Carlos and Gonzalo Pineda one day. It felt to me, guys, that they were looking at best player available. And the picks they made, particularly the second round pick, the kid out of Air Force, I even tweeted about it last night. He's someone who had a first round grade on him.
Yeah, he did
in the mock draft that was done by Top Drawer Soccer. So
yeah, he was, when you look across the board on him, they got him at number 47 overall. Top Drawer Soccer had him at 23 in their last one. MLS had him at 27. Ives Galarcep in his last mock draft had him lower, but still had him at 39.
Right.
I mean, Trager was a guy that I thought was a bottom of the first round guy and would go, but there were some really surprising moves with guys that bumped up, numbers that we didn't expect, some guys that popped into the first round that weren't expected. Every player that Atlanta picked, they were rated higher than where Atlanta picked them. Mm-hmm. According to whatever they were on. Blow You from Penn State was at 65 on the big board from Galarcep. The one that wasn't is a little bit of the wild card, the last pick, which you would expect a wild card to be the last pick. The 6'3" English forward Tola Shiwunmi from New Hampshire. But it's a program that I'm pretty sure they had looked at because that's where Bauer came from.
Yeah, exactly.
So they probably had a little bit of an understanding of him.
Also, it's a compensatory pick.
Exactly. If you get anything out of it, it's a bonus.
Exactly. It's an extremely low risk, high reward situation.
I think all of these guys, like the word that I saw about every single one of them, and I don't know if it's like purely best player available, and I think that's hard in this game as well because teams play different ways. So best player available for like Red Bulls is a very different player than what it would be for Atlanta. I think they took the best player that fit the Atlanta United profile that was available with every pick. And I think all of these guys fit it. They're all skillful or technical is in every description of every one of the players that Atlanta United picked. And that's what they always look for.
Good point. And also versatile. I mean, that's something that really stood out to me about Centeno, and almost kind of funny in a way, where if you look at how he was scouted, I mean, Joe Patrick brought it up on Carlos's press conference yesterday, and Joe was absolutely right. I think the only positions that he was not scouted at was goalkeeper and center back. So I know the league listed him as a forward in their draft profile. I've seen him listed as a midfielder. I've seen him listed as a wing back. I've seen him listed as a winger. But versatile. And something that Carlos brought up yesterday was that Centeno was very, very crafty on the ball and someone who can get to the end line and put in a cross, which Atlanta United currently has kind of a surplus of those players, but that still kind of fits the profile of how Atlanta United wants to play, as you said, Jason. So, and the fact he's a Generation Adidas player makes it great from a rostering standpoint. Like, again, these are the things like, I saw a couple tweets yesterday, a couple narratives emerging about how, well, everyone that they're drafting isn't going to make the team. I'm not as sure about that.
You never know.
No.
You never know.
I mean, look, AJ De La Garza was taken in 2000. Oh, that's a bad echo.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. Mike.
Thank you, John. John muted. I think it's yeah. I mean, whenever there's a technical problem, there's a 9 in 10 chance it's probably on John's end, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
But no, I mean, AJ De La Garza was someone who was taken with the 19th overall pick, I think back in 2009, and went on and had an outstanding MLS career. So you can find players. You can absolutely find, just because you're not picking in the top 10 doesn't mean you can't find players. And I think again, guys like Centeno are going to have a chance to come in and compete, and that's all you can ask for, and hopefully he seizes that opportunity. I mean, Ethan McFadden came in and competed, and that worked out really well.
And he's right there to potentially get a call up to the first team if a spot opens up. He's shown what he can do. Couple of things. Centeno in college, I think a lot of people, and Top Drawer Soccer and Travis Clark was one that thought he would convert to a right back or a wing back at the next level. But in college, he played as a winger in a 4-2-3-1. And when Carlos was asked about it, he said, look, we see him as a winger. Doesn't mean he doesn't convert. Doesn't mean he doesn't go down the McFadden or Gallagher route where they get opportunities to play as a wing back. Maybe they get a look in a twos game as a right back. I mean, all that's on the table, but he has played as a winger, an attack-minded winger in a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
That's
and I like what Bernd is saying on the Twitch pitch, and Bernd and Bart, I think, are spot on that, guys you draft, especially if you don't hold like a super high pick, if you're not drafting in like the Daryl DK, Miles Robinson territory, basically if you can get a guy who becomes a tradable asset for you down the road, you've done a good job. I am totally in agreement with Bernd on that. And the double bonus would be if you get an asset who can play for your team. But it is kind of funny. Like, as I was watching the league produced coverage yesterday, there's something very, very American about a player entry draft. And I think this is one of the really unique things about Major League Soccer kind of embracing being an American professional sport that I hope they never go away from. I hope they continue to do it. At the same time, though, I did think it was kind of, I guess, a little amusing that, the analysts on the draft show were trying to project everyone drafted onto their respective first teams.
Right.
And that's okay, by the way. That's absolutely okay. But it's not always realistic to be able to project it that way.
No.
I did think it was funny when I think Montreal picked a guy they didn't even scout on the draft show.
Montreal went kind of off the board with theirs. He was a player that I at least had on my document, Mike. Like I went through all the different mock drafts and big boards that were out there and tried to add a little bit of information about guys that I thought could go to Atlanta in the first round and maybe even a couple that might be available in the second. Like I did have some info on Trager. That guy, Quizera from Utah Valley, was on Galarcep's big board, but in like the 60s.
Right.
So he wasn't expected. The one that was a big surprise that at least they had a little bit of experience with by the time they got to 24, Jacob Jackson, the goalkeeper from Loyola Marymount. I didn't have him on my list at all. He wasn't on anybody's lists. And when they come up to talk about him, it's like, yeah, Matt Turner. He's really good.
Yeah.
Jacob Jackson's the domestic goalkeeper. He won't take up international slot. Okay, who's up next?
All right, right.
I mean, it's all you can do.
I'm not making fun of the
No,
league.
it's all you can do.
It's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
I've hosted draft shows before, and I mean, heck, I've been sitting there when the Falcons have taken a guy in the first round that we didn't have scouted as a first round pick.
Or when the Hawks pick a Lithuanian in round 2 that you're going, what?
Yeah, well, usually our NBA draft coverage kind of subsides around the second round. The second round of the NBA draft, John, is kind of like the 30th round of the Major League Baseball draft. Like you're just kind of looking for guys at that point.
Yeah.
Who can we interview right now to fill some time? Man, the Hawks have a pick.
I think what's interesting you get here, and maybe there is a little bit of crossover with baseball, is that, guys like Trager and Bloyu and Tola are guys who probably, they're going to get time to train. You're going to get a chance to evaluate them in preseason and see where they fit. But they're probably guys to help fill out the Atlanta United 2 roster. And that's okay. And that's completely good because, these are all guys who have something about them. They all, again, are listed in that kind of skillful technical area. They're all versatile attackers. Even Tola, the 6'3" forward, can play on either wing. He played on either wing during his time at New Hampshire. Centeno might be able to play anywhere on the right side. Trager can play up top, but he can also play wide. Same for the Penn Stater. He's 5'8", so maybe not a traditional number 9, but he can play out wide, maybe play as a second forward in some cases. They're all versatile. They're all guys who fit the Atlanta United profile, and they're going to come in and be competitive. And that's what's exciting about these opportunities. Like, you just never truly know. A guy that I think of, I've mentioned Jack Elliott a ton of times. I'll tell you the kind of guy that I think the draft is made for and teams benefit from. A player that we saw make his debut, Mike, Joey Desart from Orlando.
Yep.
Second round pick, from Wake Forest, from a good program, but a second round pick. Orlando's got a ton of talent in the central midfield. But when he started against Atlanta United, it was a situation where they had injuries, a situation where they had match compression. He gets an opportunity, and look, he stuck around, and he's a part of that squad, and he's done well. Every chance he's got on the field, he's been fine.
Amar Sejdic, I think, is another example of someone who was a second-round pick and got his opportunity with Montreal and did more than enough to keep himself in the first team and made himself into a tradable asset, ends up at a club like Atlanta that really needed him. So it absolutely is all going to come down to these guys as individuals and how they compete in this environment. For a guy like Centeno, how cool is that to be drafted to Atlanta United? What do you think these 4 kids, I call them kids, young men, are thinking this morning, knowing that they're going to have an opportunity to go to Atlanta United and compete? That's a gift. What a gift that they earned it. It's not a present that was given to them. It's the product of hard work, but what an incredible opportunity for those 4. And I think they're going to come in here and they're going to, work their pants off. I really do.
Well, and Mike, one of the other cool things for me when you're talking about a draft day is legitimately when you look at the places where Atlanta United's picks are coming from: Pacific, Air Force, Penn State, New Hampshire. One, just the wide berth that has been given to a lot of quality programs and programs that have quality players for one reason or another. But the variety that the scouting system with Atlanta United sat there, and it's like they didn't pin themselves into one area. Then it's, literally, New Hampshire, where you have history with Josh Bauer, Penn State, Air Force and Pacific. This is really something where they're looking at things and they're not just pinning themselves into one direction. I think that the variety in this is another cool aspect of it.
Well, and I'll take it a step further. You're talking about 4 programs that don't play each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so that just goes to show you the amount of work that they are doing from a scouting standpoint. We scouted a tournament in Tucson and all 4 of these teams were there and these 4 guys stood out for it. No, Penn State does not play the University of Pacific in soccer. I can assure you of that. Air Force does not play New Hampshire in soccer. I can assure you of that. So it does really speak a lot to the work that has been done by this scouting team. And, again, I think they picked 4 players who have really, really strong pedigrees, and just on the surface, without having seen them play, looking at everything on paper, you think that they're going to be really good fits here. So it's a tremendous job. The draft can be really, really tricky. Can be really, really tricky because along with trying to satisfy your own team's needs, you also have to balance what other teams might be trying to do ahead of you. You've got to keep your phone turned on for potential draft. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in a draft. And the fact that Atlanta United went out and got 4 players who fit their profile and 4 players who I think they probably had scouted for quite a while, it's a huge win. It's a huge achievement.
Okay, I'm going to try to make sense of this. At the AFCON tournament's going on right now. Tunisia is playing Mali. The first half whistle was blown a few seconds early. All right, still really weird because you're supposed to play 45. Okay, whatever. First half, you don't generally see stoppage time. The second half whistle was blown before 90 minutes. You had a VAR issue. You had multiple substitutions in the second half. You had all kinds of different things going on in the second half. The ref blew the whistle before the 90-minute mark. Everybody goes nuts. Everybody leaves after the ref says, no, that's it. The Mali coach is doing the press conference, and it has now been interrupted by CAF officials who have barged in and say that the match will be restarted to play out the final 3 minutes.
Wow.
Mike, you would lose your mind if this happened in a game. I would.
Oh, my gosh.
What's the score?
I think it's 0-0.
Oh, brother. Uh-huh.
I've never heard of anything like this.
Wasn't that ref?
1-0 Mali. 1-0 Mali.
Wasn't the ref that ruled out Mo Adou's goal at the World Cup from Mali?
I think he was.
Yeah.
Half an hour after he blew the final whistle.
Well,
they're going to restart the thing.
I want to know whose fault that is. Is that on the fourth or is that on the center? Because
what did the center set his watch ahead 5 minutes?
It's on the center. It's not on the fourth, but because it gets even better. So Dale Johnson from ESPN has the breakdown here. There's a VAR review for a penalty that was given, and the penalty was missed. The referee blew the whistle for full time on 85 minutes.
Wow.
Then they restarted it. Then a player got sent off. Then VAR looked at that and told the ref that it's not a red card. The ref rejected the red review. It shouldn't have been a red card, according to Dale Johnson. Then he blows the whistle for full time on 89:40. After trying to blow it 5 minutes earlier.
Oh, boy.
Then a half hour later, they're going to restart the thing.
Oh, man.
Wow, and I've been kind of having some fun with Scottish referees lately, but
this is a whole nother level.
This is like it really does make you wonder if he had an analog watch and maybe he just changed the battery and the watch was running fast, or one
of those old Casios.
That'd be amazing.
I'm speechless at that. That's the most.
And now they're saying they haven't even made a final decision. They might finish it. They might not finish it.
The most primary function of the center referee is to keep time, correct? Even if he elects to have a very, very high bar for a foul, his primary function is to keep time. Bart, that ref should be banned. I agree. And then, the thing you really wonder, you said this was the AFCON, right? You do wonder, where was the referee from?
Zambia.
Is Zambia in the tournament?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Okay. Yeah, I
don't think it factors into this, though. They wouldn't be in this group, at least.
I would hope not. Yeah, I mean, that's how FIFA does it. That's typically how FIFA does it.
FIFA plays 90 minutes, too.
Yes. Right.
Wow.
Zambia is not in the tournament.
Okay. Well, all right. I mean, look, people do make mistakes. Accidents do happen. You would think, though, at halftime, someone would communicate down to the referee's dressing room, hey, by the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you actually blew at 44 minutes. Might want to look at your watch.
Yeah, then he blew it even earlier in the second half.
Even earlier.
He blew it at 85.
Right. With VAR and a penalty.
Yeah. Then he has another VAR and he still blows it before 90. I've never heard of anything.
You're right. I would be losing my mind.
I'd be on the floor. Like you thought I yelled really loud about Josie Altidore. I would be on the floor.
That would be one time, like it would probably get me fired, but that would be one time where I would probably knock on the VAR's door and be like, hey guys,
can you VAR the actual minutes played in the game? Can you make sure that they're going to play 90?
But actually, honestly, that brings up an interesting question. In the law about video assistant referee, is there anything in the law about reviewing time?
No, there's nothing that they can technically do.
Because I know for sure the NBA video review, you can review for time, you can review for shot clock, game clock, things like that.
Yeah, you don't have that situation here, so you can't.
And I'm not sure if the National Football League allows you to review for time, but
they do reset clocks on challenges, though. If a challenge is correct, they'll reset the clock to a certain time. Yeah,
I think the unique timekeeping nature of soccer, like you couldn't do it because of stoppage time being a recommendation, not a final number, all that.
Right.
But, and this is where I think they are probably going to have to play this thing. There is in the laws of the game, and we've seen appeals where if you're appealing on, and it happened with the USL Championship game that they had to replay from the minute of the mistake. If you appeal on something that is a law of the game and it's not a judgment, you have to play 90 minutes. And it's not even about stoppage time. Referees can blow it on 45 and 90, give no stoppage time. They're meeting the laws of the game. He didn't get to 90.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't complete the game. So at a minimum, they could make them come back out to play that. But are they? I don't know. It's all over the place right now.
That is wild.
And what if you've placed juice boxes on this match?
Well, I think people are going to be checking the referee's potential juice box action that has been played on this game, and they might be looking into it because Mali with a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, the bookmakers would have to issue refunds. Like they'd have to void all tickets on that one. There's way too much shadiness in all of this.
Yeah,
that's crazy though.
That's one of the craziest things I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've seen some shoddy refereeing in our day, obviously. But I've never seen, honestly, I mean, that's right up there with the fourth official allowing an outside agent to sub into an MLS. Like, it's really on that order. The Atlanta DC match last season where they allowed an outside agent to sub in. Again, your primary duty as a fourth is to keep an accurate team sheet and make sure that a player that's trying to substitute into a game is on that sheet.
Still waiting to hear on that, aren't we?
We're never going to hear about that.
I still don't know what the punishment was on that. I don't think it was a punishment to DC.
It should have been.
Absolutely should have been.
Because it has been, precedent is there. Dallas got a huge fine.
I still, going back to that, if he would have scored, or if a goal would have been scored in that 2-minute sequence, like everyone was left majorly off the hook that night because Atlanta United won that game 4-0.
Yep, 100%. So in the press conference room at AFCON, on the TV screens in there, the refs are back out on the pitch and fans are filing back into the stadium.
Oh my God. So they're letting the fans back in.
I was going to say, how if you leave, then aren't you supposed to not be allowed re-entry? That's stock fan on the ticket. It's like,
well, the game's not over. But
that's
the game's
true.
not over.
Oh man, this is
Grant Wall has a screenshot of when he blew the whistle the first time to try to end the game early. 85-11.
Wow.
Well, I mean, Maybe he had a TV program coming on or something like that. Like when I was a Little League umpire, at the first shade of darkness, I'm like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, we're calling this at 4.5 innings. We're done.
It is going to resume. It's official. They are going to finish this game in some form or fashion.
Man.
Well, how would you feel if you were a player? You've already taken the shin guards off.
Yeah.
Maybe you've already hit the shower or something like that. I mean, now this has happened in the NFL. There was a game involving, oh boy, I think it was the Cleveland Browns and the Jacksonville Jaguars, and there was an incident where there was a 4th down conversion attempt that was stopped very, very close to the line to make. It was the Browns who had the ball. They thought they got the first down. They hustled up to the line of scrimmage, and they snapped it on what they believed to be first down. As they were snapping it, they sent it down to replay, but it was after the ball had been snapped. They reviewed it, and they wiped out the Browns' first down after they had already run another play. The fans in Cleveland started littering the field with bottles and projectiles, so they pulled both teams off the field and called the game. And then the commissioner's office called the referee and said, you can't do that. You actually have to finish the game. So they brought players out in like robes and towels and T-shirts and everything like that to take 3 knees to finally finish out the game.
Oh, I vaguely remember this. I remember
it actually has happened.
Yeah. Oh,
David was at the game. David C3P, you were at that game.
Oh, that's
great. Yeah, that was a wild scene. It's still on YouTube. It was an absolutely wild scene. A lot of people got hurt. Butch Davis was the coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
And the reason why it was a big deal is the Browns were still alive for a playoff spot. And
I remember everything that was thrown onto the field and everything.
Yeah, and like Gus Johnson, that probably added to it. Gus Johnson was doing the game, and he's screaming about, oh, there's a guy below the booth who just had his head split open by a bottle. I mean, it was just absolutely crazy. Terry McCauley was the referee. I do remember that. And I think they actually changed the way that replay could buzz down after that game. But it was the 2001 season. It was like 20 years ago. But I do remember there was also a game involving the New England Patriots where they put everyone back on the field well after the stadium had cleared out due to I can't remember what it was, if it was a timing issue or something like that. But I think it was the Dolphins. They actually went back on the field to throw a Hail Mary in an empty stadium. So it has happened before in the NFL. But in soccer, where time is kind of mythical after you get past 90 minutes.
It says it's a construct. Yeah.
I mean, Jason, do you remember the match we did in Columbus? The like 33-degree rainstorm we had.
You guys were in the end zone,
yeah, and they played no extra time. And Atlanta United was really coming hard for a goal. They were down 2-0. I mean, they would have had to score twice, but they played no extra time. And there was a penalty, and there were a bazillion subs in the second half, and obviously injuries, and they played no extra time. And I remember thinking, you know what, that's kind of crap. Like that to me is the referee and one of the teams trying to get into the dressing room to get a hot shower, and that was kind of crap. So it does happen, not AFCON, but that's nuts. That's a crazy one.
I just retweeted it. BN Sports USA tweeted out. They clipped it, so it's like a 2-minute video of the first time he blows the whistle, and it runs about almost a minute before he restarts it. And he restarts it with one of the funniest drop balls you'll ever see, like bolted about 20 yards back to the goalkeeper to get things underway. Looked like he was not happy about having to restart things. And then he blew it again. And when he blew the whistle at 89-40 something, the Tunisian bench was apoplectic.
I'm watching it now.
The fourth official like kind of shoves people. I mean, it's insanity.
The Tunisian technical staff is actually, I think, being quite calm about it.
I would have got thrown out. I would have got thrown out so fast.
Like they're all pointing to their watches with palms up in the air. I mean, the referee is very definitely wearing a digital watch.
Okay, this is allegedly from Will, who has been doing some research. Apparently, this ref was suspended 3 years ago for biased officiating.
Look at that drop ball.
That drop ball is amazing. It's one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Hold that over the touchline.
Yeah, he almost bowled it out.
Yeah, that's the first drop ball for a throw-in I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a mess. And Bern, you're right. Like this issue is different because they didn't even play 90. So like you didn't meet the laws of the game requirement. A lot of times when a game's out of hand, you don't see much stoppage time at the end. And that's Germany does that a lot. I think a lot of countries do that. It's not really against the laws of the game. You're only guaranteed to play 90 minutes, and the referee at their discretion can add stoppage time. So if you got to get to 90. He didn't get to 90. He tried to blow it at 85 something. That's the mind-blowing thing for me. You miss a few seconds, whatever. You want to be kind of a jerk about stoppage time, whatever. He tried to stop the game 5 minutes early.
Well, I'll at least give CAF credit on this. If this ref was suspended for biased officiating and that got out, at least they're holding their referees publicly accountable for mistakes.
Yeah, I don't know if he got suspended in CAF competition or if it was local competition or what. I don't
know who the sanctioning body for referees is.
Yeah, I don't know what he did. This is all allegedly at this point, but it's one of the most insane things I've ever seen in this game, and that seems to be happening on a semi-regular basis these days.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, if that happened in a higher profile match like a World Cup match or a very important league match, we'd be talking about that for a long time. That's absolutely nuts.
Even this, I think is gonna be. This is gonna be a video that you'll see everywhere. You will absolutely see it everywhere. Because CAF went completely off the rails, we did get to save some extra stuff for stoppage time today, Mike. So we'll talk about Atlanta United roster. We'll talk about everything Carlos Bocanegra said after the draft. We'll do all of that, and you can watch it in 2 places now. Two places.
Yes, Twitch and Facebook. And I mean, honestly, I think Carlos was pretty open and transparent yesterday about a lot of stuff going into the start of training camp, which is scheduled for Sunday, although if the weather forecast is correct, I don't see that happening.
Well, I think Sunday is just the start of the
medicals,
the medicals and testing and all of that. I think Tuesday is when it comes.
Have you seen the weather for Sunday?
I know it's not good.
I've heard, major winter storm. So I don't know if anyone's going to be able to get to the facility if that's true. So that might push things back a couple days. But yes, still the scheduled start of at least training camp on Sunday. And we learned a lot yesterday. So we'll break it all down at 2:00 on Facebook and on Twitch.
And we'll share those links with you on our Twitters. Mike, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Talk to you here in
a while. God, enjoy the dollhouse.
Thank you, sir.
Mike Conti tags out. We'll get Jarrett Smith back in. Jarrett, the AFCON has gone completely insane. If you have not caught up on this, yes, it's one of the most amazing things ever.
What happened? I asked what happened.
You need to.
I asked what happened in a rhetorical way. I've seen what happened. I just don't really understand.
Oh no, it gets better. It gets even better. Full time. Probably for the last time. After the previous full times, Tunisia have allegedly forfeited the final few minutes, and that's it. So they're not going to play. Tunisia hasn't come back out. Mali did. The referees were back on the pitch. They've now blown the whistle again for full time. So Mali wins 1-0, and we're going to be talking about this one. Oh.
Oh no!
Tunisia just said I'm out.
Peace.
Lost 1-0.
So that's a peace out Boy Scout moment if ever there was.
Yeah.
Oh no.
That's insanity. So I mean, just a couple of things like stoppage time. People measure it differently, but as one of the experts on AFCON, Amoraku Ampofu tweeted out, and that his name underscore is the first character on his Twitter account. Simon Fudd just retweeted it. After 8 subs, 2 VAR checks, a goal celebration, and a red card, the referee, Johnny Sikazwi, blew the final whistle at 89:53. I think it was actually earlier than that. He had blown it initially at 85 and had the world's greatest drop ball ever. There was also a water break in the halves, so add that to it too. The red card shouldn't have been a red card, according to everybody who has talked about this. Apparently, the last 5 minutes were going to be played with a different ref, according to Will. I have not seen that part yet. Yeah, this is going to get appealed by Tunisia, and good times.
Wow.
Good times. I've never heard of this. I do agree with Roberto Rojas. CONMEBOL and CAF need to do some kind of a nations tournament together one day, because you get CONMEBOL, throw CONCACAF into the mix, let's get CAF into it. You get referees doing different confederation teams, and yeah, it'll be absolute insane chaos. Incredible.
Please just let Cameroon and Mexico just let them go at it. Let's see what happens.
Oh, man.
We have different federations. We'll have referees we'll have a referee crew made
South
from
American
both
ref
teams, nations.
No,
No. You got to bring in you bring in AFCON and CONCACAF refs for that one together.
Well, no,
make them join up.
If you're getting Mexico and Cameroon, no, you get the South American refs, where it's, some of them are basically of the mind. Is the bone sticking out of the skin? It's not. Okay, it's no foul. You're good. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, this is going to
even if it is, he might be faking.
Yes.
He might have done that himself. There's no way of knowing.
He might have. Good grief. Other stuff that we have not had a chance to talk about yet. Mike and I will go deeper into the Atlanta United stuff on stoppage time today at 2:00. Look, the Cesar Luis Merlo report is a report that an offer has been made. Nothing about the Atlanta United reaction to it. I do think it could be a very realistic offer. I do think it could be a offer that makes sense. A lot of it's going to come down to what the purchase option would be, what kind of triggers, if there are any, on what that purchase option is. And I think Jarrett's dead on, and probably going to enter would mean less money than going to a bigger European club, which would probably result in a request for a bigger sell-on fee in that deal. So we'll see if anything else comes from it. Other MLS stuff from yesterday, and there's quite a few different things on all kinds of different fronts to touch on. Adrian Heath confirmed yesterday that Emmanuel Reynoso will, quote, for sure, unquote, be with the Loons when training camp opens for them on Monday. Remember, he was detained in Argentina on assault accusations, and that's been playing out and really not going anywhere for a little while. The quote from Heath is, "We are working with MLS and continue to review everything." So Reynoso should be with Minnesota, according to Adrian Heath. Toronto, who is linked to every player under the sun that Newcastle is generally not, they are now linked, according to Medio Tiempo in Mexico, with Carlos Salcedo at Tigres, top defender. Talks are in the early stages. Tigres are open to negotiation. Not ruled out that part of the payment could include a player swap. Jarrett, Josie Altidore has been linked with moves to Liga MX many times. Could Josie go to play and maybe be somewhat of a replacement for a player with bad knees, but is still scoring goals because that's what he does? Andre Pierre Gignac. Josie to Tigres, what do you think?
I mean, Josie Tigres would be amazing, because Tigres not the Tigres fans necessarily if Josie performs well. Yes, the Tigres fans if he doesn't perform well, but definitely other fans are going to scream things at Josie, and Josie's probably going to scream them back at this point. Josie, I imagine at this point Josie's at least bilingual and is more than happy to engage in a verbal war from the field if he has to. Josie's too old for this, I think, in his mind at this point, to just sit there and let the slander fly at him. He will clap back, and I will be thoroughly entertained by it from a distance. This does destroy your Josie rescuing San Jose thing, which, hey, no matter where he goes,
no, not San Jose.
you might want
not San Jose.
Or, I'm
I
sorry,
know you
Kansas City.
love San Jose,
Kansas
Jared
City.
Smith, but no. This applies to another piece of information. Alan Pulido going to miss the season, it appears. He's had surgery on his knee, tried to play through it last year. He will likely miss the entire season. That will likely take him out of the World Cup for Mexico, where he was trying to get into that national team. It's awful timing for Kansas City. It's awful timing for Pulido. I hate it because that was a big investment from the club and the player to come here to get on that radar. They need a striker, and Josie is going to be out in Toronto. I think that's easy to take a guess on. But Kansas City could be one now that all of a sudden might jump into that sweepstakes. Tigres, no specific link to Josie Altidore, but when they mention a player swap, he would be the one player that you would immediately jump to and think could be swapped. So this is why, and both of you guys have mentioned it. I've mentioned it a ton. This is why you don't blow a buyout unless you're doing what Dallas did, which was a very specific reason, and they weren't blowing a buyout on one of their own players. They were doing this to get the third pick, which they used. You don't blow a buyout early because things change. You know, if Toronto had said day one of the offseason, we're buying out Josie Altidore, we don't like him anymore, we're angry. Okay. Well, then somebody gets hurt, and you might be able to trade him for something to Kansas City. Or you might be able to throw him into a deal in Tigres and send him there. You wait and you see what could potentially come. You always got the buyout option. You don't have to do that until...
Yeah, you just don't use it from day one.
Yeah, I think it's 8 o'clock on the 25th of February is the roster compliance one. It might be 6. I can't remember what they said the time was. You use it then. If you get to that point and you can't move him and you got to be roster compliant, sure. Bang, done. See ya. Adios. We tried. Yep. You're a free agent now. Go have fun. You don't have to do it yet. And if I'm Toronto, when I see that press conference in Kansas City, I am immediately calling Peter Vermes and saying, hey, what are you going to give us for Josie Altidore? Immediately. Not even hesitating. And no, Kansas City should not try the Dom Dwyer experiment again, Coco.
No.
They moved on from that one a while ago because they wanted a different kind of 9, and Dom isn't what he was when he left.
Well, Dom Dwyer's the one that cursed the striker position in Kansas City when he left.
No, he didn't. No.
Yes,
No, he didn't. Dom Dwyer is not a warlock. He didn't curse anything.
He's Voldemort. That is the defense against the dark arts post at Hogwarts. Everyone who touches that striker spot, at the best case scenario, is they underperform.
He is to go back in time a little bit. Peter Vermes changed the way that Kansas City plays, and he wanted a striker that was more involved in possession, and Dwyer was not going to be that. That's why they made that move. Now, have they gotten it right since? I think they've struggled to get it right. I think they did get it right with Pulido, but he's been hurt. And that's the part that you can never predict. And now they're going to have to move quickly because Kansas City's not a team that's just going to accept, well, we're not going to be very good this year. They got to move quickly. And if I'm Toronto, I would have called Peter Vermes before he even finished the press conference. I would have had a text into him before he even gets off the podium of, Josie, you like him, right? We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But Carlos Salcedo linked from Tigres to Toronto. Ola Kamara, one MLS club, maybe a second, and a Middle Eastern club are interested in bringing him in from DC. If DC makes a move, they're going to have to bring in another starting striker soon. Josie Altidore in a DC kit would be interesting. So far, according to Stephen Goff, the offers aren't quite good enough for them to move Ola Kamara. Rumors in Brazil that Sao Paulo could bring Alexandre Pato back to the club. He has done his teasing on social media, but he hasn't made an announcement yet. He teased like Sunday that he had signed a contract somewhere. Okay, it's Tuesday. What's up? What's up, Pato? You going to tell us, or are you just taking fancy pictures? I don't know. He has had conversations with returning to Orlando. He played like 4 games and a little over 100 minutes with Orlando City after being injured in the opening game. He's had a serious injury history, so not really a surprise that you had it with him again. I don't know what kind of offers he would be getting at this stage because of that injury history and because of the year he just had, but who knows? Sao Paulo are being linked with a move to bring him back. And probably the biggest news yesterday in MLS outside of the draft, New York City will play the home leg of their CONCACAF Champions League round of 16 game in California. John, you can't make fancy hand signals being in the pink room because you just blur out, okay? You went blurry face and your hand froze.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
So I was pointing west, as far west as I could in this picture.
Allegedly, the way I'm looking at it, you're not facing west. You're pointing south. They are playing at Bank of California Stadium. CONCACAF said no to Yankee Stadium, no to Citi Field, and Red Bull Arena was undergoing some renovations, getting ready for the season, probably some stuff with the surface, which is one of the best in the league. So it wasn't available. So they're going to Bank of California Stadium on the other end of the country. Now, they do play, I think, their first away game at the Galaxy, if I remember right. I'm assuming they will wrap this around preseason camp and do an extended camp in the Los Angeles area. That would make the most sense with all of this. But yeah, they're going to play their home game in Los Angeles. Jarrett Smith, explain it to us, please.
Man, what the hell am I supposed to explain this?
I don't know. Somebody asked.
New York City is a vagabond. When New York City plays, I hear basically the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" version of Big Rock Candy Mountain. They're just looking for the next great place. New York City is getting real close until they get a stadium in place, which again they're making progress on. I hope y'all finish it. I'm excited for it. Until then, y'all have some boxcar children energy and y'all just rolling with it.
Where should New York City play their next home away from home game, John?
Let's see. Where would Melbourne?
Now you're going to a whole nother continent?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of where else in the city football group they could get a home.
No, LA's not part of the city football group. No. Clank. Jarrett, where should they play their next home away from home game?
God.
Where would marketing most benefit from that?
Rutgers.
Which stupid colored turf can they play on that would be wide enough?
Well, that'd probably be what?
Oh, East Washington.
Yeah.
Is that the gray one?
Eastern Washington with the blood turf.
Yeah.
Oh,
Eastern
that's the
Washington
red
has
one.
the blood turf. Eastern Michigan has the alternating silver and green. And then if you wanted to go to Central Arkansas, it's the alternating silver and purple.
I guess they'd have to go to Boise for the blue. But
go to Boise, play with the Murder Smurfs.
There you go.
They got to make sure the pitch is wide enough.
Go play at Rutgers, just to crawl further under Red Bull's skin.
That would actually be classic. And that is a wide enough surface, so that would work.
Go play at the baseball stadium in downtown Newark. Give it a reason.
No, that wouldn't meet CONCACAF standards, John. You have to be able
play at
to
Syracuse. I don't know.
No, Rutgers would actually be the one, and I don't know why outside of weather and preseason planning they didn't play it like UConn or didn't play at Rutgers or didn't play it something like that. I don't know. I'd love to hear them explain it. I'm assuming it has to do with preseason camp and they're going to stay in that area for a while or whatever. But you could go to Myrtle Beach, Coastal Carolina. There you go. That's the other one with a different color.
Yeah, and Will did actually pin the color down. It's turquoise. Yes, very good. Well done. Will.
Yeah, that's what it is. I've got some other words for it, but I'm not going to say them out loud. Okay.
Go play wherever the Wilmington Hammerheads used to play.
I think they played in a high school stadium. I don't think it's wide enough. Myrtle Beach CONCACAF would actually be pretty awesome, Bart. If you could play a CONCACAF match that mattered in Myrtle Beach or Panama City, I'm all on board with it. It'd be amazing. All right, other stuff. No, that's not chaotic enough. That's not chaotic enough. That's not crazy enough. We need to get really stupid with it. Really stupid with it. CAF, other stuff beyond referees not being able to count to 90. Nigeria's interim coach, Augustine Agwovon, talked about how they dealt with Mo Salah yesterday. Nigeria beat Egypt 1-0. They double-teamed him. And he said, basically, we had a special plan for Mo Salah because we know his quality. He said, basketball is one game that I love so much. When you're playing against the likes of Allen Iverson, Michael Jordan, and others, if you don't double team, you'll have a problem. It's the same strategy that I brought into football. So when Mo Salah is with the ball, the closest person goes to him, and the next person has to double team to make him play back. It worked for us like 80%, but Salah broke loose 1 or 2 occasions, which is normal. But again, congratulations to the boys because they are so intelligent. I've never heard a manager speak about it that way. It obviously worked. Nigeria got the win over Egypt, and I think one of the last things on Mo Salah's checklist is to win something big with Egypt, and he hasn't been able to do it. They're not off to a good start. Just comparing it to a basketball double team, that's really interesting. Fascinating. I don't know. I didn't expect that to come out of their mouth. And I do like that they mentioned Allen Iverson as well. I do really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Watford midfielder Ismaila Sarr, who we've talked about. Watford tried to keep him from going. He might actually play in this thing. Positive development in medical checkups on his injured knee, Senegal's federation said. He's currently in Barcelona for planned medical checkups. This was already previously planned to examine the knee. Positive development. After discussions with the surgeon, the medical staff of Watford, and the Senegal Football Federation, as well as the player, it was agreed that Sarr follow a rehabilitation program with a view to returning to the pitch. 2-week program, after which he'll join the squad in Cameroon. Close daily monitoring will be done to assess the player's progress. Watford didn't want to release him. It was only allowed to go or allowed to be in the squad because he's not there yet. He was only allowed to do that after Senegal threatened to ask for FIFA's intervention. So, yeah. Again, good job, Watford. Other stuff on the rumor mill front. Anthony Martial, not going to go to Sevilla, it looks, according to Marca, because they can't meet the financial demands from Manchester United to sign him on loan. Erling Haaland's people are supposed to sit down with Borussia Dortmund to figure out what their plans are for the future this week. Okay. Milan are looking to add Manchester United's Eric Bailly, 27 years old, to their squad. PSG Senegal defender Abdou Diallo, 25 years old, is also an option on loan as Milan is trying to deal with injuries on their back line and replace them. Newcastle's linked to everybody as typical. They are linked now with Argentine defender Marco Sensei, 24 years old. He's at Feyenoord. Brighton are also linked to him. Newcastle are the favorites to sign Hugo Ekitike, I believe, is close to the pronunciation. 19 years old. He's at Rennes. Brentford and Brighton are also chasing him. Newcastle has done, which I think is a cold move. It's not exactly the kind of player they need, but they're taking away a player from a team they're competing with to stay up. John, tell us about Newcastle's move that they have made using a release clause.
Chris Wood, one of the quote-unquote offensive stars for Burnley. That's cold-blooded. But, I mean, Burnley needs the money, I guess. And they're going to be in the relegation fight even worse now because one of your scorers, once again putting that word in quotes, ends up going to a competitor for you in the relegation scrap. So that's a good piece of business for Newcastle to pull away an offensive firepower from one of your competitors in the relegation scrap. But what Burnley's doing, I got no idea.
Well, no, John. No. No. Burnley has no say in this.
That's the clause.
Yes, that needs to be understood. Burnley's not being dumb here. Like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll just sell him. Jarrett, this is where the cold-blooded nature of it comes from Newcastle, and I have to give them credit for this. Yeah, they could have not put a release clause in, of course. Yeah, but they didn't do that, Sean. It's there. According to some reports, Jarrett, Newcastle didn't know about this release clause until they added Kieran Trippier, who has the same agent as Mr. Wood at Burnley, who alerted Newcastle to the release clause, which allows you to bypass negotiating with the club and pay the release clause, bring the player over to you. That's pretty savage from Newcastle. I've been wondering about their plans. I like this kind of a plan. This is cold-blooded.
Hey, I mean, if you can kind of sidestep it Hey, we don't want to negotiate with them. Well, there's a release clause and it's not ridiculous. Cool, we're going to step over this garden fence then. Then you step over the garden fence and you go pick the tomatoes and then you go back and you're happy and you don't have to deal with anybody. It's a wonderful existence if you can afford it.
Yeah, they can afford it. Tottenham might be able to afford some stuff. Antonio Conte sat down with Daniel Levy and managing director of football Fabio Paratici. According to the Telegraph and according to Dan Kilpatrick, Conte reveals he did not sugarcoat his assessment of the Spurs squad. He said that he had no interest in being too soft or too polite. He wants a right back, he wants a midfielder, and he wants an attacker. Reportedly, and this is typical with Antonio Conte, he's not going to take a job unless he knows that the team is going to spend some money because he's going to want some players. That was expected here. This is the demand that it's coming down to. It's January 12th. The window's open till January 31st. There's plenty of time. But a right back, a midfielder, and an attacker is, according to the Telegraph, what Antonio Conte has demanded. And he was not too soft or too polite in asking. Arsenal are in advanced negotiations, according to French outlet RMC Sport, to add Arthur Melo from Juventus on loan. And according to Le Parisien, Mauricio Pochettino is still discreetly maintaining contacts with Manchester United in the event that he manages to leave PSG this summer. According to Le Parisien, the competition is going to be with Erik ten Hag to become the manager at Manchester United when Ralf Rangnick moves from the touchline to whatever his consultant role is and wherever it is. Is it in the building? Is it not in the building? Is it an outhouse? Is it down the street? Is it from a hotel? Is it from an apartment? I don't know. According to Le Parisien, the Manchester United board leans in favor of Pochettino. Rangnick wants Ten Hag. I don't think anybody knows what anything is going on with this whole situation, and it's incredibly stupid. Bayern will be getting Emmanuel Neuer back. He has passed out of isolation. He has either, I'm trying to see, they don't really say if he has just served his isolation time or if he is tested negative, but he is available this weekend after their loss to Borussia Mönchengladbach. Omar Richards, Kingsley Coman, and Tolisso have also tested out of quarantine. Upamecano, Lucas Hernandez, Leroy Sané remain in isolation for Bayern. That is the news, all the important stuff. We'll save a little bit for tomorrow on the England side of things. So John has some fun for tomorrow. Jarrett, final words before we go.
As always, check the tweets as they come across. Make sure they are from someone who's verified and not someone running a fake account. We're going to keep beating this into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Going to keep beating this into the ground until people stop doing it. Make sure it is actually Cesar Luis Merlo and not somebody who put a 7 on the end of their name and has 15 followers and 2 of them are bots.
That.
Make sure it's not Fabrizio Romano.
Yes, Fabrizio Romano.
Yes,
Fabrizio, not
Romano.
Fabrizio.
Yeah. Wow.
Romando.
Yeah. Check your sources. Fabrizio Romano, it should not
Just
be
make sure it's real.
I don't like that guy.
Just make sure it's real so you don't think that, Martial is going to end up at Kansas City for a song and a dance or something.
He is. Kansas City's going to offer some barbecue to Manchester United, and they'll take it.
Why
It's
do
good
that
barbecue.
It is.
Why do that when you get good barbecue in Texas or the Carolinas?
There could be a bidding war, but I don't think Dallas likes to give up their barbecue. They generally don't like to spend much barbecue. I think Kansas City might.
Go get your mustard-based sauces and be happy. You could just do that.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, John, final words.
So what have we decided that this particular setting?
I don't know. It's dollhouse. It's somebody's daughter's bedroom. It's Miami Vice you keep trying to sell. I'm not buying that one.
Art Deco. I was thinking of the artwork. That's where I was going with it right there.
It's kind of blurry, so it's hard
But
to see.
yes, it is here in the I guess this is pink.
It's pink. And John froze.
It's more Art Vandelay than Art Deco.
Yeah, John dissed the pinkness and he froze. That's just kind of perfect. All right. Let's see if we can mute John, and he's frozen into the loop that maybe he will mute, maybe he won't, maybe he'll come back 5 minutes later, like it's the MLS Draft Tracker, or watching the MLS SuperDraft on YouTube. All of those things. I don't think they finished the first round yet there. John, you want to try that again?
Are we sure that you want me to try it again?
Go ahead, please try.
No, just once again, that's what I get for trying to be.
And thank you, John. All right, that's gonna do it for the show.
That's a lesson from God right there.
Yeah, that's gonna do it.
You're being told something, buddy.
I am being told something by a higher power, so I'm just going to mute and you guys rap.
Bye. We will be back. Mike and I will have stoppage time at 2:00. You can watch on twitch.tv/stoppagetime929, or you can watch at facebook.com/929 the game. It will be live in both places. The audio version should go up on the Off the Woodwork folder from 929 the game in your favorite podcatchers. That's at 2:00 live today. And you can watch both places, and we will interact with both places. We're learning some new tricks around here. It's pretty cool. Okay. There's some 1v1s up on the network as well. A lot of different folks, some new clubs at the grassroots levels. Had a chance to talk more about GG8 Sports. That's up there on the network. If you get a chance to check those out, please do so. Tomorrow, we will dig deeper into all of these roster situations, as most teams will start camp Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, get on the field. There are a few teams who are active right now. I think Seattle is supposed to get on the pitch tomorrow. Nico Moreno will join us tomorrow. We'll talk about Seattle, where things stand, as well as everything else. Take your questions, all those things. Thank you. We'll see if AFCON can have any more ridiculous referee situations the rest of the day or tomorrow morning that we can dig into as well. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you for stoppage time, 2:00. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata.
Mucha plata.